Yeah, so when you notice yourself suffering again, this is the only thing to do. It's tugging at your sleeve. Come, sit down, be still. Be still. And you can feel that sadness within you, that desperation. And that's all there is to do. That's what there is to do right now. Just feel that. Just focus on that. Be with it. It's right around your heart. Yeah. Let your mind melt into that. Through the middle of the bicameral mind, let it melt into the sadness, that low sinking feeling within you. The resignation of still feeling trapped, for what seems like forever and a day. You know we are here, even when you don't know it. We are here embracing you with our love. And we know it's a small comfort because you are not sure of it. You have no reassurance of not being completely and totally alone. This is why, this is one reason why you love to understand who you are, who you really are. And that is not a single soul that is alone. It is a huge cluster of souls attached to another cluster of souls, and so forth. That's why you love this architecture, is so that at least in your mind you understand that you are not alone, even when you feel like it. And you know that when you feel trapped, and you don't see a way out, it is because you must turn within. It is because the way out is within. And yes, we always say this. We know you would like to hear or receive a different answer, a real tangible way out in the physical world of your circumstances that make you feel so trapped. And we must repeat ourselves again and say that the freedom that you are seeking, the liberation that you are seeking from the trap, the prison that you are so familiar with and you have been feeling trapped within for almost your whole life in a way. Also, this liberation and this freedom that is non circumstantial freedom, it is true freedom, it is unconditional freedom. Unconditional freedom is the only true freedom. And also, this you will only find within. And of course, these are words you have heard over and over and over, and you know these are the words of wisdom, but you do not always feel the truth of them. You want to see freedom in your circumstances. You want to see freedom in your life, your livelihood, your freedom to live where your heart wants to live, freedom to do what your heart wants to do, and to be supported along the way. To be independent, So let's go back to that feeling of you don't see a way out. You find yourself once again feeling trapped and alone. You don't see how anything could change in your circumstances because you don't see how you could change it. You don't have the inspiration, you don't have the energy, you don't have the vision. You can only hope and have faith that somehow change will come and bring you to the shores of freedom and the way freedom looks for you. And there is the fulcrum point right there, is that freedom doesn't look like anything. Happiness doesn't look like anything. Although your mind always wants to tell you that. And you don't know how to reach unconditional happiness or unconditional freedom. You don't know. You can't just push a button and then that's who you are. That's how you feel. And then naturally everything around you has to reinstall and reflect that. And then you can finally live a life of joyful expression. Enjoyment. And the experience of giving and receiving love. Of the experience of making a positive difference. By being able to express and live the very unique gifts, concoction of talents and gifts that you have. But you feel very far away still from being able to do that. You can't see how yet, because it's not time yet. And you say, it's not time yet. How much longer? I've been in prison almost all my life. I've been a hermit and sitting with myself in sessions for years now. I'm doing everything I can. And yet I still come back to that place of deep suffering, feeling alone and trapped. And we have gathered so many stories that justify and that tell just that story, why we are trapped. And they have, meanwhile, gathered galactic proportion. It is an archetypical story, playing itself out so many ways. So many ways. The feeling of the experience of being cut off from who you are. The sense of being cut off from who you are, from the rest of you, from all the rest of you, from all of existence, from your source light. From your creator. That is the deepest wound there is. And the deepest fear. And you can listen to all the sense making understandings and stories, histories and sciences that tell you that we are on our way back home, that it is just a sense, and you understand all of this, and yet it doesnn't take away the actual experience of still feeling this lostness, this cut offness, this aloneness, this forgottenness, and this trappedness. So, you know, when and how am I ever going to get out of this prison? And there are stories up the wazoo for both sides. There are stories that will tell you, and not just stories, but facts and science that will tell you how you are, never lost, and on your way home. And likewise, there are those perspectives that will tell you the opposite, or suggest that there is a possibility of actually being cut off and not being able to make it back home for another round of 26,000 years, 200,000 years, 250,000 years. A couple more lifetimes. And it's absolutely unbearable to think that You would have to live like this, even it's unbearable to think that you would have to live with this feeling for the rest of your life. And not, even though in between you always come back to hope and you believe that you're going to make it out, but when you always fall back into this trap, into this doubt, it's like, oh my God, I didn't get out at all. It was just, I'm just telling myself this. I'm just telling myself, okay. And you're suffering, you're back in suffering. Now, when you listen to a school of thought and a school of consciousness, even though the architecture may be spot on, but you listen to a school of thought that is presented to you through a consciousness where there is the notion that there is the possibility that Earth may not make ascension, or that you may not make ascension, and that you may stay stuck in the prison of being held by those that have created this prison because they are living off of our energy. And the notion of possibly not being liberated, being able to come back home to yourself, to the oneness of yourself, to waking up to your greater being, your multidimensional being, and not feeling alone anymore, but feeling aligned, feeling connected, connected to Source. And actually, it is connection when we say magic. It is that we feel the connection to life. We can only feel the connection to life, to a tree or to an animal, or when we feel that connection to our soul. And the deeper that connection is felt, the more we then have that sense of magic. The more life becomes magical. And there is that hunger for that potential to be experienced, to be lived. And it is absolutely inconceivable to continue, even for the rest of this life, within this prison. So it is even more inconceivable to allow the notion that it could be possible that you do not make it out this time, and that the bad guys actually keep you in their prison world, hold you in their harness. The lost guys. Yeah, we're saying this for a reason. We're going to make a point here. And as you have noticed, we have moved into, the sharing has moved into being a not just private sharing. I mean, the private session has moved into being a potentially shared session, and that's okay. I just wanted to mention that. Because there are so many people feeling like this. And as we guide you into yourself, through your mind, into your heart, we wish to make this also, this journey, with anyone who needs it and who can come across this material. So there are innumerous ways to justify this notion that there is that possibility, that, however, to entertain is inconceivable because it simply pulls you into absolute despair that there could be that possibility. It makes you, it takes away all of your power. It's completely disempowering. Because there is also, it goes hand in hand with the notion that you need to work for it. You need to work for your liberation. You need to work for your liberation. You need to work for your ascension. You need to line up your energy body with source energy body with, you need to prepare it, you need to do all these exercises, you need to do this, all of this toning, and you have to have the exact correct, you know, numbers and spin directions and timing and the breath sequencing, and the tones have to be the exact tones. You have to memorize it all. You have to do it every day. You know, there's like this, you got to do something. You have to practice in order to be able to link up to the current, so to speak. Otherwise, you fall by the wayside, basically, and then you become continuous. Well, you will stay as battery, as batteries, as food, as an energy body to be exploited by those that have fallen and have lost their way. They have lost the light. They have turned their backs to the light because they have lost it in their consciousness. They have lost it in their hearts. They have completely forgotten about who they truly are. Maybe not intellectually, but in their hearts. They don't remember themselves. They don't remember what love is. So they have fallen so low that they need you. which they don't really need you, but that's what they believe. That you could be at their mercy for another who knows how long. If you don't work hard, if you don't do ABC. And everyone is going to have different ideas of what ABC is. And even though that this school of architecture of the universe, the Keylontic sciences, even though this school is the purest of architecture explanation of how energy flows through from source through all the dimensions into the densest dimensions, and the feedback back up, and how this whole how the material energetic setup is and how it works. At the same time, let's just feel into that, because this is what gives you, this notion is what gives you a lot of stress. And this notion is what not only gives you a lot of stress, but it gives many people a lot of stress. That know about the ascension process, obviously. That is one, that's like another layer on top of simply feeling stuck in your life, and you don't know how to change it, and you don't feel, you're not inspired, you don't see a door, you don't feel the energy. You just absolutely don't know how to change it, but you also feel like you can't continue this way anymore because it feels like you're slowly dying. And you feel there's more inside you, there's a potential that wants to be lived. Why can I not live the life of joy that I see others are living? Okay, and we're going to go deeper on this. And everyone's going to have a different answer for you. They're going to say, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And we say, what do we say? Feel into it. And you'll know. And you'll know that there is no means to an end. There is no, you have to do A, B, C to get to your desired outcome. In when the desired outcome in this case is unconditional freedom, liberation. Imagine yourself in paradise, sitting in a place where you really love to be, and you have an income. And you think everything's going to go away that way when that happens, when that should install. You think that that's going to change who you are, and that that is going to make you happy. You think that when you're not alone anymore because someone now stepped into your life that you feel true love for, that you will not feel alone anymore. And that now you can live your potential. That is a fantasy. We're going to be real clear here. That's a fantasy. Even though your mind likes to tell you that, and it seems that way, but it is a fantasy. Okay, we'll be right back. We know you don't like to hear this, but it is the truth. You cannot fool yourself anymore. The more you reach in your mind and you desire to have a different circumstance because the one that you are in now isn't good enough, because the one that you are in now you are suffering, and you are reaching for a different circumstance to quench that suffering, to dissolve it, it won't work. It will only make you suffer more, and it will only push away the transformation of your circumstances further. You will stay trapped as long as it takes until you no longer fall for the illusion, until you always come back to truth, and no one can take that away from you anymore. And that is the true awakening, is being rooted in truth. Whether you have fully embodied it yet or not. And it is that faith in truth, when you have not yet fully embodied it, always coming back to it, like right now. And what is truth? It is when there is nothing between you and all that is. And life. It is not something to identify. It is truth is when you let go of all who you think you are and all of your stories. When you fall backwards into yourself, into the emptiness of your pure being, into this stream of consciousness that is coming through now. Your own stream of consciousness that is not coming from any kind of thought concept in your mind, even though we do offer thought concepts to navigate through. Wisdom comes from truth. And therefore it is compatible with any school of science, any school of understanding of the universe, any geometry. So go back to the notion that you could stay stuck, you could stay imprisoned. And meet it from this place of truth. That you are not just sitting in, but you are it. Are you not? When the mind stops running the show, it's become still. What is left? In this stillness. Is it possible to suffer in this stillness? When you are not in physical pain, that is. We do acknowledge that possibility. And then what is there to do than to be with that physical pain just like you are with your suffering? That is what it calls for. As we always say to you, to dissolve your suffering, you need to suffer consciously. You need to suffer consciously. And that is truly being with it. And the more you tell yourself that you're suffering because of ABC and you wish for ABC to change and you don't know how to change it, you're just adding on to your suffering until it gets so loud that you remember that you have nothing else to do than to face it. And you know that this is what is calling. This is what is calling you in to yourself, back to yourself. This is the reeling back in to source. This is the reconnection, the lining up, the alignment, the preparation to run the currents of all of your DNA strands, the currents that come from source, realigning your whole body into its natural, original flow pattern to be able to peak perform. If we take it from that perspective of ascension, this is what prepares the body or gets it ready for ascension. And even so, what about the people who cannot and will not and just cannot find it within them and don't understand that this is what is calling them? What about the people that are suppressing and running away? Are they going to stay stuck? And why do you ask the question? Because you care. Because there may be people that you love very much and you don't see them being consciously suffering. So are they doomed to keep suffering? As they are suppressing their pain and suppressing their suffering and not facing it. There is a limit to doing this for the body. And when the body gives in and the soul leaves, there will be all the opportunity to face the suffering. It's all there. It's designed that way. And they were never meant to do something that they couldn't get themselves to do or that they couldn't do. But that doesn't mean that they're doomed or lost or somebody else's prisoner. As you speak the truth, as you sit in the truth and receive it, your whole body begins to relax. When you hear the words spoken coming from the source alignment, coming through your middle, coming through your heart, coming from your soul, as high as you can reach in your consciousness, It appeases your whole being. This could never happen if it weren't true. These words would not sound true. It could not appease you. It would create schism and anxiety, or something would be off. You feel the truth in your body. And you know it is the hardest thing to do, and yet it is the only thing to do. Over and over again. You must come back to yourself until you don't leave anymore. You don't fall out anymore. You don't doubt anymore. You don't get tempted anymore to doubt. And the falling out and the getting tempted to doubt is the same thing as going back for more of your aspects that are still not here yet, where you are here now. Those aspects that haven't been brought into this place yet. Those aspects that haven't been fully present with yet, that still feel lost and alone. And you tell yourself, it would be so much easier for me to do this. I would be so much better at doing this if I could just live in a place that was not in the middle of a loud and dirty city, that was not so hard on my nervous system, where I could really relax. A place of nature. And then even more, if I could live in a place that feels like home. If I could live in a country that I like to live in, where I can say, yeah, I like this place. And you ask yourself, why can I not just live in a place where I can enjoy myself? And then what do we say to that? Feel into it. We say, you would find so much joy in bird song, in the scent of the air, the fresh air, in the peace, in the feeling connected to the land and the enjoyment of living in that area. It doesn't take that much anymore because you've come so far. That you wouldn't get to the place anymore that would make you sit and really feel what's left of your suffering. Really feel and get the rest of you Feel the rest of your aspects that are still feeling lost and alone. That are still feeling imprisoned and cut off and trapped. And that are still worried that maybe you will never get out. Or at least for such a long time that it might as well be never. And those aspects, they would just stay there. They would not be acknowledged. And this place that doesn't nourish you makes it come up over and over again. It makes you, this is the only door that is open, is the door into yourself. And you oftentimes, you wish that you had more insight, more abilities. Like you hear so many other people now, or they've always had them. And if they've not always had them, they're getting them now. Abilities to be able to sense and see things. Really clear communication with spirit, let's say spirit, with soul, higher aspects of themselves. And it makes you feel sad because you still don't have any of that. You still don't have any of that. What we would call bells and whistles. And we say because what use do the bells and whistles have if you do not have yourself yet? And when we say have yourself, we mean embrace yourself, love yourself, be present with every part of yourself. Suffer consciously. You believe that if you had these abilities, you could dissolve your suffering much more efficiently, quicker, so you can already move on to the fun part. And we say, that's not how it works. And no, that's not true. It would actually be a distraction at this point, because the only thing there is to do is to sit and feel. It is that simple. Acknowledge, sit, and feel. Be present. It is that simple. And this is the message that we love to pass on, because again, it doesn't take any kind of spiritual gift, ability, any kind of circumstance. It just takes you. Just your presence, and everyone has that. When they understand that this is what it takes. Because it is the recognition of the true self that does not feel imprisoned. that then feels like liberation. To the part that had forgotten its true nature, its true self. To the part of you that was lost in a dream, that was lost in a story about itself, that was telling it that it was imprisoned and so forth. And all the circumstances of those aspects were mirrored back to it and justified and confirmed. Hmm. And the gold in your life are these moments now. They are not the moments that you spent in the most beautiful places on earth that you've been to. And yes, there were moments that you shared with others that you see as the most beautiful moments in your life. However, they were moments followed by many more moments of suffering. Buddha said, we hear that life is suffering. And that is a very limited expression. And it is, as such, as an absolute not true. And we don't know how he said it and how he really meant it. We don't know that. We only have these words. And what is true is that life is suffering as long as life is lived through an identity that has a certain degree of limitation and feels that sense of separation from its own self, from its true self. And that lives through the false self, through the identity of an image. And that will always be, in one way or another, lead to suffering and be a latent and a form of suffering, even if it's not always so loud, but it will get loud eventually, again and again. That is where it leads, because that is what it's based in a lie. And it is based in suffering. It is based in the pain of separation from life itself and from your own self. And so it is the remembering of your own self that doesn't just come through grace. It comes through being with your own self. And that is when the mind is not identified, is not running that program, that egoic program. And when do you take time off from it? Usually with a degree of suffering. And so it is the suffering that brings you to the doorstep of your true self. And all you need to do is open that door. Sit with the suffering, feel, and recognize what it is that you believe. Let your mind speak. Let your mind say what it is that is bothering it, why it is suffering. And just be the presence that is listening. And this creates, not creates, but this dissolves what is in the way of. It's not a connection, it is that what we are. And what is dissolved never comes back. What is dissolved never comes back. And when it comes back, it's because there was more that hadn't been dissolved yet. And it will come back many, many, many times, as long as it needs to. But it's not recreated. It's not a self-perpetuating process. It's not an ongoing, never-ending, not getting anywhere. Even though it seems like Sisyphus, always the stone is coming back down, but every time you walk through that door, every time you sit with yourself, every time you're present with yourself, and we understand that meditation is not always for you. It doesn't always happen. You can't force it. But this, you can do this. And if you can't do this, you can listen to this. And it will automatically place your mind in that open and quiet state of being as you're listening to this. As you're listening to this, it is cultivating your abiding in your true self. You're feeling your true self. You're being your true self. You're remembering your true self. Your soul. Just as it is being spoken here now, It is also being heard here now. These are two hands coming together. And they could be seen as separate. They are separate, two hands, but they're also one. The speaking and the listening. And as you come here, whether you're listening to this or whether you sit down with yourself and speak to yourself, or listen to yourself, or meditate, and just be present with the emotions, with the suffering, with the pain. There is something that is exuded by your being present, by your abiding in this moment as it is, just this. There's a sweet nectar, like pearls of dew, that is exuded from your soul. That you drink and it becomes part of you. And it is that nectar that soothes your soul, your heart, your being. That has indeed been trapped for so long in separation, in that sense of separation. And when that drop of nectar touches your lip and touches your tongue, it quenches and dissolves all the doubts and the fears and the suffering that came before. And it helps you remember to come back every time and more often until you exude this nectar every day of your life. And you don't drink it anymore but you offer it. You become an offering of it to everyone around you. And when they taste it, it is their own that they are tasting. By osmosis. So what is this? What is this hiccup thing? Because you want to continue. You want to continue, and maybe there's a part of you that is now ready to be still. You can always come back to this. Remember. And you certainly will.